In a letter to Anne Chavis, Mary wrote that the backlands make a stretch of forest in which you can easily imagine your own feet being the first to have walked in these footsteps. For us as children, the forest where you might get lost was an important part of our education in woodcraft and alertness, but even more, a growing space for the emotions and the imagination. My name is Joan Lehman. I am a member of the Mainwoods group that has made a donation to Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation. Mainwoods was incorporated in 1977 as a not-for-profit organization. The lands center on Needler Point, but the story of Mainwoods starts much earlier with George Needler. George Needler was a prominent scholar specializing in German literature. He became the chair of the German Department of University College, University of Toronto. He wrote several books and played the violin. George purchased some of the backlands in 1908 from Walter Hollinshead and Alexander Green. He purchased approximately 3,000 feet of frontage on Lake of Bays in 1911. George Needler built a farmhouse on Needler's Point, and he named it Robbinsdale. Mary and George Needler did not live year-round at Robbinsdale. It was, as far as I understand, a summer farmhouse with water access only. George Henry and Mary Winifred were active Quakers, or Religious Society of Friends, which form a diverse global community united by testimonies of peace, equality, and simplicity. Upon George Needler's death in Toronto on January the 1st in 1962, the entire estate transferred ownership of the Westermain, Woods, and Lakeshore properties to his daughter, Mary Needler Hind. Mary Needler Hind wanted to hold the lands in common with like-minded people, and for each to build a cottage for their own use and keep the lands in an undeveloped state, like a Quaker community. She initially wanted to create a trust. She thought that the trust mechanism would be the best way to protect the lands. But when she discussed it with various lawyers, working out shareholdings with other people was a complication. There was no clear path for managing that trust. So Ezra and Anne's suggestion to create this club of like-minded people was the solution that sat best with them all. In 1973, Ezra and Anne Chavis formed a founding group of like-minded people to purchase the waterfront and backlands from Mary Needler. A subdivision plan of 7 Lake of Bays lakeshore lots, 3 to the north of Needler Point and 4 to the south, known as lots 1 to 7, made up the membership of Westermain Woods. 3 restrictions were placed on the properties immediately. There was to be no building or dock on Needler Point or on the land abutting the northerly neighbors. There was to be no more than 2 boathouses on the waterfront for all 7 properties and the open space lands. And third, there would be no more than 1 motorboat per waterfront lot, to be used only when necessary. The interesting and perhaps very unusual part of the restrictions is that they chose to place restrictions on their own privately owned land. So the idea was that they would all use the land communally, and there was a waterfront pathway that they walked between one another's cottages and went visiting and so forth. One of the comments that Mary Needler Hind made to the group when they were parsing the restrictions was that she didn't think power equipment should be used. She recognized that it needed to be used during the construction of a building, but she didn't want people using power saws, for instance. She wanted to keep things as simple as she had remembered. It was pure nostalgia, I think, on her part, a desire to keep things as simple as she remembered them. She was born in 1900, so she was 10 to 12 years old when her father bought the property. Robbinsdale was built, and it was sitting there by itself on an empty piece of land, if you will. She very much appreciated the silence of the lands around her and wanted to see that kept. My recollection of Robbinsdale is, beyond these wide porches, was that it did not have running water, it did not have electricity. I think it was a 2-story building. Robbinsdale was quite run down by 1995. Parts of the porches that surrounded the main structure had fallen in and was in desperate need of a great deal of work. My husband and I and our kids had rented a cottage in the wintertime just down the road on South Portage to cross-country ski in the winter. And we came back one August and came paddling along the shoreline and noticed that this property had a for sale sign on it. It looked perfect for what we wanted. It was surrounded by nothing. No development either side. Very small cottage. It would give us an opportunity to get to know the land. So it was an ideal opportunity for us. When we purchased our lot in 1995, all 7 lakefront lots had been sold, but not all were developed. There were 2 lots north of the Needler's Point that hadn't yet been built upon. So my recollections of the backlands will always stay with me. We had a great time exploring through the backlands in all seasons, but mostly in the fall. We did cross-country ski on some of the areas that had been opened up by the logging trails, and there were a whole area of trees that were full of bear nests that I had never seen before. The claw marks on the beech trees I will always remember as a cautionary tale, that knowing that a bear can climb a tree way faster than I can run. I learned a lot as an urban girl in a rural environment, if you will. The board of Westermain Woods decided to donate the lands to the Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation. We thought that the Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation was the best vehicle to protect the lands and in perpetuity. Over the nearly 50 years that Westermain Woods was in existence, there were sometimes differing perspectives and values over recreational access. We were not owners of the land, but sometimes we felt like we were. Sometimes there were competing notions of land management. So we began to look at choices. And Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation was a unanimous choice and a very easy choice for us. Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation also had a number of things we did not. And that was a bank account that could meet immediate needs should the government change the legislation governing taxes and so forth. They had a group of dedicated volunteers with the expertise to maintain the lands as Mary had wanted them. It just seemed to be the logical choice. With an aging board, we realized that this was an ideal opportunity. And we're very pleased that Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation agreed to do that. Part of the agreement with the donation was that the Lake of Bays Heritage Foundation and Westermain Woods agreed that the lands would be used only for the occasional nature walk guided by naturalists, and that the access for the original owners would remain. Otherwise, the property is not open to the general public. As a board, although we thought of ourselves as owners from time to time, we realized we were stewards of the land. And we are just so very pleased that the land can be kept together as one piece, that the Needler's Point on Lake of Bays will be an open space of protected land in perpetuity. These are just excellent results for us. And I think the board made the very best decision they could. Over the last 30 years that we've owned on this property, we've seen a lot of changes. Lake of Bays has changed tremendously, but the backlands have not. What was there when we arrived is still there, and hopefully will be there for many years to come.